Owen Fletcher sat cross-legged on the floor of his workshop, surrounded by broken machinery and unpaid bills. The eviction notice crumpled in his fist felt heavier than any tool he had ever lifted. 30 days. That was all the time Station Gamma 7 gave him before they would throw him out into space, literally. His work visa expired with his lease, and without either, he would be deported back to Earth. Earth. The word tasted like ash in his mouth. He could never go back there. Not after what happened in the mines, not after watching his 3 crewmates die because the equipment failed and he lived because he ran. Survivor's guilt was a kind companion out here on the edge of civilized space, where nobody asked questions and humans were rare enough to be ignored. The station hummed around him with the sounds of 1,000 different species trying to survive another day. Through his thin walls, he heard the Quillen family next door arguing in their clicking language. Somewhere above, heavy footsteps marked the patrol of station security. A transport ship groaned as it docked 3 bays over. This place was a dump, but it was his dump, his refuge. Owen looked at his savings account on the cracked tablet screen. 20,000 credits. 5 years of scraping by, fixing broken ships for criminals and refugees, eating nutrient paste and never spending a single credit on anything that was not completely necessary. It was everything he had in the entire universe. He opened a new document and started typing before he could talk himself out of it. Human male, 34 years old, seeking contract marriage for citizenship purposes, offering 20,000 credits up front. 2-year commitment, separate lives. No expectations beyond legal partnership. Serious inquiries only. His finger hovered over the submit button. This was insane. Desperate. Pathetic. He pressed it anyway. The advertisement went live on the station's network, visible to every resident with a data tablet or neural link. Owen immediately wanted to delete it, but forced himself to leave it up. What choice did he have? He had applied for visa extensions 3 times. Denied every time. Station Administrator Eula, that bureaucratic insectoid nightmare, had personally delivered the final rejection with what he swore was a satisfied click of her mandibles. 3 days passed. Owen received exactly 7 responses. 4 were obvious scams asking for the credits up front. 2 were offers from people who could not legally sponsor anyone because they were fugitives themselves. 1 was just a message that said LOL in 12 different languages. Petro, the 4-armed Quillen who ran the parts shop next door, came by on the 3rd evening with a bottle of something that smelled like industrial solvent. "You are making mistake. My friend," Petro said, pouring the liquid into 2 cups with 2 of his hands while gesturing with the other 2. "Marriage is sacred thing, not business transaction." "Everything is a business transaction on this station," Owen replied, but he drank the awful liquid anyway. It burned going down and made his eyes water. What kind of person accepts such offer? "You think about this?" Petro's compound eyes looked genuinely worried. "Could be criminal. Could be crazy. Could be both. Could be my only option." Petro sighed with all 4 lungs. Humans, always so dramatic, always thinking they have no choices when they have many. Name 1. You could fix ships illegally, make more credits, stay under radar. And when station security catches me, I get deported anyway, but with a criminal record. Petro could not argue with that logic. He poured more of the terrible drink instead. On the 4th day, Owen woke to a new message. The sender name was just Raya with no species identifier or profile image. The message was short: "I accept your terms. Meet at docking bay 12 tomorrow. 14 was station time." Owen read it 5 times. No questions about him. No negotiations about the credits. No request for more information. Just acceptance. His hands shook as he typed a reply. Confirmed. See you then. He spent the rest of the day cleaning his workshop and the tiny apartment attached to it. Not that it mattered. Whoever this Raya was, she was doing this for the same reason he was doing it. Desperation. He should not pretend this was anything more than a transaction. But that night, he barely slept. He kept imagining worst-case scenarios. What if she was wanted for murder? What if she was diseased? What if she was part of some elaborate scheme to steal his credits and leave him stranded? Petro's words echoed in his mind. What kind of person accepts such an offer? The next day arrived too quickly and too slowly at the same time. Owen stood in docking bay 12 at exactly 14 Amur, watching ships come and go through the atmospheric shield. His heart hammered against his ribs. A small cargo ship, battered and scarred from years of hard use, began its landing sequence. The landing ramp lowered with a hiss of hydraulics. Owen held his breath. A figure emerged from the shadows of the ship's interior. Tall, very tall, scales that caught the station's artificial light and reflected it in shades of crimson and gold. Wings folded tight against a powerful back. Amber eyes with vertical pupils that locked onto him immediately. A Drakshi, a dragon woman, a member of the most feared warrior species in known space. Owen forgot how to breathe. She walked down the ramp with a slight limp, her right wing hanging at an odd angle, clearly damaged. Even injured, she moved with lethal grace. She stopped 3 meters away from him, studying him the way a predator studies prey. "You are Owen Fletcher?" Her voice was deep, resonant, like distant thunder. "Yes." His voice cracked. He cleared his throat. "You are Raya?" "I am." They stood in silence, two desperate souls meeting in a docking bay, about to gamble everything on a stranger. Raya towered over Owen by at least 2 feet, maybe more. Up close, her scales were even more impressive, like someone had carved precious gems into living armor. But it was the scars that told the real story. Her right wing looked like it had been through a war and lost. Burns, tears, and what looked like old shrapnel damage covered the membrane. The wing hung awkwardly, unable to fold properly against her back like the left one did. "We should talk terms," Raya said, her accent thick with the guttural sounds of her native language. "Somewhere private." Owen led her back to his workshop. Several aliens stopped to stare as they passed. Drakshi were uncommon this far from their home territories, and most species gave them a wide berth. Their reputation as warriors was not exaggerated. Even children learned to fight before they learned to read. Inside the workshop, Raya looked around with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She examined the exits, the tools, the security measures. Old habits, Owen guessed. "Once a warrior, always a warrior. You have contract prepared?" she asked, turning those unsettling amber eyes on him. Owen pulled up the document on his tablet. "Basic terms. 20,000 credits transferred on the day we register the marriage. The marriage gives me citizenship through spousal rights. We stay married for 2 years minimum, then we can dissolve it legally. We maintain separate lives. No obligations beyond the legal requirement." Raya read through the contract quickly. Too quickly for someone reading a foreign language, Owen thought. Then he remembered that Drakshi had perfect memory. She probably absorbed the entire thing in seconds. "Acceptable," she said. "I add 1 term. I pay my own way. I will not be charity case. You do not have to do anything. The credits are payment enough." "No." Her voice turned hard as steel. "I work or I leave. This is not negotiable." Owen raised his hands in surrender. Okay, you can help in the workshop. I am always behind on repairs anyway. I know nothing about machines. I will teach you." Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe. Or suspicion. She nodded once. "We have agreement." They shook hands. Her grip was careful, controlled. She could have crushed every bone in his hand without effort, but she held back. Owen appreciated that. "I need to know," Owen said. "Why did you accept?" "No questions, no negotiation. You just said yes." Raya's wings shifted slightly, a gesture that might have been a shrug. "You need citizenship." "I need citizenship. You offered fair price. Why would I need more information than that?" "Most people would want to know who they are marrying. Most people are not exiled from their home world with nowhere to go." The words came out flat, emotionless. A statement of fact, not a plea for sympathy. Owen wanted to ask more, but the look in her eyes warned him not to push. They were both running from something. That was enough common ground for now. Raya moved her belongings into the workshop that same day. Belongings was a generous word. She had 1 worn travel pack, a ceremonial blade that looked ancient and sacred, and a small data tablet. That was everything she owned in the entire universe. "The second room is yours," Owen said, showing her the tiny space that served as his bedroom. "I will take the workshop floor. I have a sleeping mat." "You will sleep in your own bed," Raya said firmly. "I have slept in worse places than a workshop floor. I do not require comfort." They argued about it for 10 minutes before Owen gave up. When a 7-foot dragon woman made a decision, it apparently stayed made. That night, Owen tried to cook dinner for both of them. It went badly. Drakshi were carnivores who could eat meat raw. They also needed twice the protein humans did. Owen's meager supplies were clearly not going to work. "Tomorrow we shop for proper food," Raya said. examining the sad excuse for a meal he had prepared. I have 300 credits. It is enough for basics. You do not have to spend your money. We have already discussed this. I pay my way. Dinner was silent and awkward. They sat across from each other at the small workbench that doubled as a table, eating food that neither of them enjoyed, surrounded by the sounds of the station humming around them. Owen tried to think of something to say, but everything felt wrong. Too personal, too casual, too invasive. Raya finished first. She stood and began cleaning her dishes with precise military efficiency. Tomorrow, she said without looking at him. We register marriage with station administration. Then you show me workshop duties. Then we establish routine. Routine is important for successful cohabitation. Sure, routine. Good. Owen felt like an idiot. He was terrible at this. Raya paused at the doorway to the workshop area. Owen Fletcher. Yes? This arrangement will work. I give you my word. Draxi do not break their word. Then she was gone, disappearing into the workshop to set up her sleeping area. Owen sat alone at the workbench, listening to the sounds of her moving equipment around, probably making a nest out of old canvas tarps and cargo blankets. He wondered what series of disasters had led a Draxi warrior to accept a marriage proposal from a desperate human stranger. He wondered if she was lying awake right now, asking herself the same question about him. Outside his window, Station Gamma 7 continued its endless rotation through space, carrying thousands of lost souls through the void. 2 more would not make any difference. They were just another transaction in a place built on transactions. Nothing more. Owen tried to believe that as he climbed into his bed, alone in his room while his new wife slept on the workshop floor. He tried very hard to believe it. He failed. 6 weeks passed like water through a broken pipe, fast and messy and never quite under control. Owen taught Raya the basics of ship repair, and she learned with frightening speed. Her memory was perfect, her spatial reasoning better than any engineer he had met, and her strength made jobs that took him hours into jobs that took her minutes. The workshop thrived. Word spread that Owen had hired help, and suddenly customers who had been scared off by his backlog started returning. The credits started flowing in steadily. They could afford real food now. The stress of impending deportation faded into memory, but they still barely spoke beyond what was necessary for work. Hand me the plasma welder. Pressure valve is failing. Needs replacement. Customer wants estimate by tomorrow. Professional, efficient, distant. Owen told himself it was fine. This was a business arrangement, nothing more. Raya clearly wanted it that way. She worked from dawn until late night, pushing herself harder than anyone he had ever seen. When she was not working, she was exercising or maintaining her blade or reading technical manuals. She never asked about his past. He never asked about hers. Then the Quillen came in drunk. His name was Toro, and he was twice Petro's size with half the brain. He stumbled into the workshop demanding immediate service for his racer, slurring his words through all 4 mouths. Owen smelled the alcohol from across the room. Sorry, Toro. We are fully booked. Come back next week. No. Toro slammed 2 fists on the counter. Fix now. You fix now or I tell everyone you are garbage mechanic. Raya emerged from beneath a transport ship, where she had been replacing coolant lines. She stood slowly, coolant dripping from her scales, her full height making Toro look small despite his bulk. Customer needs to leave, she said quietly. Toro's compound eyes focused on her, and his mouth twisted into something ugly. Oh look, the cripple speaks. Tell me, Dragon Woman, how much did the human pay for you? Must have been cheap. That wing looks like it went through a trash compactor. Owen felt anger spike through him. Get out now! But Toro was not finished. He had an audience of his drinking buddies outside, and he was showing off. Everyone knows humans like to buy broken things. Make themselves feel better. Is that what you are, Dragon? Broken thing that makes the sad human feel good about himself? Raya's expression did not change, but Owen saw her damaged wing twitch. Saw something die behind her eyes. I said, get out. Owen crossed the workshop in 3 steps. He was half Toro's size and 1/10 as strong, but he did not care. You do not talk to her like that. You do not talk about her like that. Get out of my workshop or I will throw you out myself. Toro laughed. His friends laughed. Then Toro made a mistake. He reached out to shove Owen aside. Owen had been in mine collapses, had pulled injured workers out of burning tunnels. had survived situations that killed trained professionals. He was not a fighter, but he knew how to hurt someone if he needed to. He grabbed Toro's wrist and twisted hard, using the Quillen's own momentum to send him stumbling toward the door. "If I see you here again," Owen said, his voice low and dangerous, "we will have a problem. Understand?" Toro fled, his friends following, their laughter turning nervous. The workshop fell silent. Owen turned to find Raya staring at him. Something new was in her eyes, something he could not quite read. "You did not have to do that," she said. "Yes, I did." "Why?" "I'm used to such words. They do not hurt me. They hurt you." "I saw it." Raya looked away. "Among my people, to speak in someone's defense is sacred. It creates bond of honor. I am not Drakshi. I was just telling the truth." That night, Raya did something unexpected. She knocked on his bedroom door after the workshop closed. Owen answered to find her holding 2 containers of food from the station's good restaurant, the one that served fresh meat. "You have not eaten," she said. "Neither have I. We should eat." They sat at the workbench together. For the first time, they talked about something other than work. Raya asked about Earth. Owen found himself describing mountains and oceans and forests, things he had not thought about in years. She listened with an intensity that made him feel like every word mattered. "Why did you leave?" she asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. Owen had not talked about this with anyone. Not even Petro knew the full story. But something about the way Raya looked at him, patient and non-judgmental, made the words come out. "I worked in deep space mining. 5 years ago, our equipment failed. Containment breach. 3 people died. I survived because I ran for the emergency pod instead of trying to save them. I left them behind." "You would have died too," Raya said simply. "Maybe. But I did not try. I just ran. That is not cowardice. That is survival. Tell that to their families. Tell that to the investigation board. Tell that to myself every time I close my eyes and see their faces." Raya was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice softer than he had ever heard it. "I was injured during Trial of Valor, sacred ritual among my people. I was protecting civilians from combat zone when structure collapsed on my wing. I failed to complete the trial because I was trapped. My people declared me wing broken. Exile was mercy. That is insane. You were saving people. Does not matter. Failure is failure. Honor is honor. This is Drakshi way." Owen looked at her, really looked at her, the proud set of her shoulders despite the damaged wing, the strength in her eyes despite the pain behind them. She carried her exile like he carried his guilt. 2 people punished for surviving. "They were wrong," Owen said. "Your people were wrong about you. Your people were wrong about you too." They sat in silence, but it was different now. Not uncomfortable. Understanding. Everything changed after that night, but slowly, like ice melting under a weak sun. They started having breakfast together, started sharing stories while they worked. Raya taught Owen flexibility exercises from Drakshi combat training, and his chronic back pain from years of hunching over repairs began to fade. Owen taught Raya card games, discovering she was fiercely competitive and a sore loser who accused him of cheating every time she lost. Petro noticed. "You two seem different," he said one afternoon while dropping off parts. "More like real couple." "We are not a couple," Owen said automatically. "It is just a contract." Of course. Petro's compound eyes glittered with amusement. "Contract that makes you smile when she walks in room." "Very professional contract," Owen wanted to argue, but Petro was already gone, his laughter echoing through the corridor. 3 months after Raya arrived, the Drakshi came to Station Gamma 7. There were 5 of them, all wearing the dark armor of military contractors, mercenaries looking for work or trouble or both. They swaggered through the station like they owned it, and most residents gave them a wide berth. Drakshi warriors were dangerous even when they were in good moods. Owen was installing a new pressure regulator on a cargo hauler when he heard the voices outside. Loud, aggressive, speaking in the harsh clicking language of the Drakshi, he looked up to see Raya standing frozen in the doorway, her face gone pale beneath her scales. "Raya?" Owen climbed down from the hauler. "What is wrong?" Before she could answer, one of the Drakshi warriors appeared in the doorway. He was massive, even for their species, with scales like burnished bronze and wings that looked powerful enough to carry him through a storm. His eyes locked onto Raya. "Impossible. the warrior said, switching to common tongue. Raya of Clan Brightwing. I thought you were dead. Hello, Court. Raya's voice was steady, but Owen heard the strain beneath it. I am not dead, just exiled. Court stepped into the workshop and Owen saw the way he moved. Predator. Killer. This was someone who had ended lives and would end more without hesitation. The other 4 Drakshi crowded in behind him, blocking the exits. Exiled, Court repeated, his eyes traveling to her damaged wing. Yes, I remember now. You failed the trial. Wing broken and dishonored. I heard you had fled to the outer territories to hide your shame. I'm not hiding. I am working. Working? Court laughed, and it sounded like rocks grinding together. Working for a human? This is what you have become? The great Raya Brightwing, who once led 20 warriors into the razor fields, now fixes broken machines for a soft skin? Owen felt his hands curl into fists. You need to leave. Court's attention shifted to him, and Owen felt the full weight of a warrior's evaluation. He was being sized up, measured, dismissed as irrelevant. It should have made him feel small. Instead, it made him angry. The human speaks, Court said. Tell me, soft skin, did you buy her? I know your kind likes collecting broken things. She is my wife, Owen said, the words coming out before he thought about them. And she is not broken. So get out of my workshop before I make you leave. The other Drakshi actually laughed at that. A human threatening them was apparently hilarious. But Court did not laugh. He stepped closer, towering over Owen, close enough that Owen could see his reflection in those bronze scales. You have courage, Court said. Stupid courage, but courage. I respect that. So I will give you a choice. Walk away now, and I will only humiliate your wing-broken wife. Stay, and I will humiliate you both. Owen looked at Raya, saw the tension in her body, the way her damaged wing trembled, saw the shame she was trying to hide. Every instinct screamed at him to back down. These were trained killers. He was a mechanic with a bad back and worse nightmares. But he thought about Toro the drunk Quillen, thought about how Raya had stood tall after he defended her, thought about the way she looked at him when she told him about her exile. How about a different choice, Owen said. You want to prove you are better than us? Fine, let us make it interesting. A competition. If you win, we close the workshop and leave the station. If we win, you leave and never come back. Court's eyes narrowed. What kind of competition? Engineering. There is a critical system on this station that has been failing for months. The water recycling plant. Whoever fixes it first wins. You can use all your military training and advanced education. We will use what we have. You challenge me to a repair contest? Court sounded genuinely confused. This is your idea of honor combat? Among humans, Owen said. Real strength is not about who can hit hardest. It is about who can solve problems best, adapt fastest, build what is needed from what is available. You say Raya is broken? Prove it. Beat us at what we do best. The other Drakshi were murmuring now. This was unusual enough to be interesting. Court looked at Raya, then back at Owen. Something like respect flickered across his face. You truly believe you can win? I know we can. Court smiled, showing teeth designed for tearing meat. Very well, human. Tomorrow, dawn cycle. The water plant. When I defeat you, perhaps I will let you keep your workshop. You have earned that much by being entertaining. The Drakshi left, their laughter echoing through the station corridors. Owen's legs felt weak. His hands were shaking. What had he just done? That was incredibly foolish, Raya said quietly. Probably. Court was ranked 7th in the warrior trials. He has engineering training from military academy. He will not be easy to beat. Then we better work all night. Owen pulled up schematics of the water plant on his tablet. Because I am not letting him humiliate you. Raya looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled, really smiled, for the first time since he met her. Let us begin. The water recycling plant sat in the deepest level of Station Gamma 7, a maze of pipes and filters and pressure systems that had been jury-rigged so many times it barely qualified as functional. The air smelled like rust and chemicals and desperation. Perfect place for a showdown. Dawn cycle arrived with half the station crowded into the observation gallery. Apparently word had spread about the human mechanic challenging Drakshi warriors. People loved a good disaster story, and this promised to be spectacular. Court arrived with his 4 companions, all of them looking confident and amused. They carried military-grade tools and diagnostic equipment. Owen and Raya showed up with a battered toolbox and a cart full of spare parts scrounged from the workshop. Station Administrator Eula stood between them, her mandibles clicking with what might have been excitement. Rules are simple. The plant is failing. Whoever restores full pressure and clean water output first wins. You may use any parts available in this facility. You may not sabotage your opponent. You have 4 hours. Begin. Court moved immediately, pulling up holographic displays and running diagnostic scans. His companions spread out, their military training obvious in how they coordinated. Professional, efficient, intimidating. Owen looked at the tangle of pipes and felt his heart sink. This system was worse than he thought. Decades of poor maintenance had created problems stacked on problems. Where did they even start? Owen, Raya's voice was calm. Focus, we know this station. We know how people here fix things. Use that, she was right. Court had military training, but he had been taught to fix military equipment with proper tools and replacement parts. This station did not work that way. Nothing here was proper. Everything was improvised, adapted, made to work with whatever was available. The main pressure regulators are shot, Owen said, thinking out loud. We cannot replace them in 4 hours. But we do not have to. We can bypass them entirely using a parallel system. That is against safety protocols, Raya said. Safety protocols assume proper equipment. We do not have proper equipment. We have creativity. Raya's eyes gleamed. Show me. They worked like they had been partners for years instead of months. Owen designed solutions that broke every rule in the engineering handbook, and Raya executed them with precision. They used cargo straps to reinforce weak pipes. They diverted flow through filtration systems meant for completely different purposes. They built a makeshift pressure regulator out of spare parts that should not have worked together, but somehow did. Court noticed. Owen saw him glancing over, his confident smile fading into concentration. The Drakshi was following proper procedures, replacing components one at a time, doing everything by the book. It was good work. Professional work. It was not fast enough. 2 hours remaining, Eula announced. Owen's hands were bleeding from a dozen small cuts. His back screamed in protest from crawling through tight spaces. Raya's damaged wing kept catching on pipes, forcing her to twist at painful angles. But they were close. So close. The main filter is clogged beyond repair, Owen said, staring at the readouts. If we cannot clear it, nothing else matters. Then we remove it, Raya said. Without a filter, the water will not be clean. Then we build new filter. Fast filter. Temporary but functional. She was already pulling out mesh material from their parts cart, cutting it with her claws into precise shapes. Humans always say necessity is mother of invention. Invent. Owen laughed despite the pressure. She was right. They did not need a perfect solution. They needed a working solution. He helped her construct a crude, multi-stage filtration system using materials that were never designed for water treatment. It was ugly. It was inefficient. It was brilliant. 1 hour remaining. Both teams were racing now. Court had recruited station maintenance workers to help, but they kept getting in each other's way. Too many cooks, as humans said. Owen and Raya moved in perfect synchronization, each anticipating what the other needed before words were necessary. Final pressure valve, Raya said, pointing to a junction that looked ready to explode. It cannot handle the load. Owen looked at the valve, then at the pipe configuration, then at the cart of parts. An idea formed. Crazy idea, stupid idea, human idea. We do not reinforce the valve. We reduce the pressure before it gets there. Add expansion chambers here and here. He sketched it out on his tablet. The pressure spreads out, no single point takes the full load. That will reduce overall output by 10%. But it will work. And it will last, Raya nodded. They implemented the modification in 15 minutes, working so fast their hands blurred. The crowd above was silent now, watching with genuine interest. Even the other Drakshi warriors looked impressed. 10 minutes remaining. Court's team was struggling with a failed pump. They were trying to replace it, but the new pump did not quite fit the old housing. They were forcing it, grinding metal, making it work through brute strength. Owen and Raya stepped back from their work. The system hummed around them, improvised and patched and held together with hope and human stubbornness. Owen looked at Raya. Her scales were streaked with grease and coolant. Her damaged wing hung lower than usual, exhausted. She had never looked more beautiful. Ready? He asked. Ready? He pressed the activation button. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the pipes shuddered, pressure gauges climbed, filtration systems engaged with a chorus of mechanical sounds. Clean water began flowing through the output valves, clear and pure and perfect. Full operational capacity achieved, Eula announced, her mandibles clicking rapidly. Winner Owen Fletcher and Raya Brightwing. The crowd erupted in cheers. Even Petro was there, waving all 4 arms and shouting in his native language. Owen felt his knees go weak with relief. Court approached them slowly. His expression was unreadable. Then he did something unexpected. He placed his right fist over his heart, a Drakshi gesture of respect, and bowed his head to Raya. "You have adapted well to your limitations," he said. "Perhaps there is honor in that." Raya stood tall. "There is honor in survival. There is honor in partnership. These are human teachings. They serve me well." Court looked at Owen. "You fought for her. You believed in her. This is warrior behavior, even if you are not warrior. I was wrong about you both." He turned to his companions. "We leave." The soft skin earned his victory fairly. After they left, Raya turned to Owen. Her amber eyes held something warm, something that made his breath catch. "Thank you," she said softly, "for believing I was not broken. You were never broken, just healing." Raya's hand found his, her claws careful against his skin. Something shifted between them in that moment. Something neither of them could name, but both of them felt. The victory celebration lasted 3 days. Free drinks at every bar. Customers lining up with work. Station residents treating Owen and Raya like heroes. But the best part was the quiet moments between, when they would catch each other's eyes and share a smile that meant more than any words could express. They stopped pretending the marriage was just a contract. Raya moved from the workshop floor into Owen's bedroom, and neither of them questioned it. They fell asleep talking about dreams and woke up tangled together. They worked side by side during the day and explored the station together in the evenings, seeing it with new eyes. Everything felt possible. Then Owen got the headaches. At first he blamed stress or lack of sleep. But they got worse. Sharp pains that made his vision blur, dizziness that left him gripping the workbench for support. He hid it from Raya for 2 weeks before she noticed him stumbling. "You are going to medical bay," she said, her voice leaving no room for argument. The station doctor was a tired Tyrellian who had seen every injury and illness the galaxy could produce. He ran scans while Owen sat on the examination table, trying not to show how scared he was. Raya stood beside him, her hand on his shoulder, silent support. "Old head trauma," the doctor said finally, pulling up images of Owen's brain. "From years ago, I would guess. You have been getting headaches? Vision problems. It will get worse. Much worse. Without surgery, you have maybe 6 months before permanent brain damage." Owen felt the world tilt. How much for the surgery? 50,000 credits. Maybe more depending on complications. The equipment needed is only available in core worlds. 50,000. Owen had 8,000 saved. The workshop was doing well, but not that well. He had spent most of his savings on the marriage contract. His vision blurred, and this time it was not from the headaches. "We will find a way," Raya said firmly. But Owen knew the numbers. There was no way. Not in 6 months. Maybe not ever. He tried to hide his despair, but Raya saw through him. That night, she held him while he cried, something he had not done since the mining accident. She whispered to him in her own language, words he did not understand but that sounded like promises. The next morning, Owen woke to find her gone. Just a note left on the pillow written in her careful handwriting. "My warrior heart, you gave me back my purpose when I had none. You showed me that broken things can be made whole again. Now I must do the same for you. I am returning to my people. If I complete the trial properly, they will pay my exile debt. 60,000 credits. Enough for your surgery and more. Do not try to follow me. Do not try to stop me. I am Drakshi. This is what we do for those we love. Wait for me. I will return. Raya." Owen read the note 3 times before the words made sense. Then he was running through the station, tablet in hand, pulling up departure records. Her ship had left 2 hours ago, headed for Drakshi territory, 3 days travel at maximum speed. Petro found him in the docking bay, staring at empty space where her ship had been. "She went back," Owen said numbly. "She went back to face her people alone. Then you follow," Petro said simply. "Fast ship leaves in 1 hour. Costs everything you have saved, but it gets you there in 2 days. You can beat her arrival. Why would I do that? She is trying to save my life. And you will let her face trial alone? After everything? Petro grabbed Owen's shoulders with two hands while the other two gestured emphatically. This is not transaction anymore. This is love. So stop thinking like accountant and start thinking like husband. Go get your wife. Owen booked passage on the fastest ship in dock. The Drakshi homeworld was a nightmare of volcanic mountains and storm-racked skies. The air tasted of sulfur and ozone. Owen arrived to find the trial already in progress, held in a massive arena carved into living rock. Thousands of Drakshi watched from tiered seats as Raya faced her challenge in the arena below. The trial was combat and protection combined. She had to defend holographic civilians from waves of automated attackers while a timer counted down. Her damaged wing kept throwing off her balance. She was struggling, fighting harder than Owen had ever seen anyone fight, but it was not enough. Owen did not think. He just ran down into the arena, vaulting over barriers, sliding past guards. Alarms blared. Voices roared in outrage. He did not care. He reached Raya's side as she fell, exhausted and bleeding from a dozen minor wounds. She looked up at him in shock. Owen, what are you doing? Helping. He pulled her to her feet. Together, remember? The trial master's voice boomed across the arena, speaking in the Drakshi language. Raya translated, her voice weak. He says you have violated sacred trial. Both of us will be executed. Tell him to wait, Owen shouted to the crowd. Tell him I invoke the right of testimony. To his surprise, the trial master paused. Apparently, Owen had accidentally said something that meant something. The elderly Drakshi in the highest seat stood slowly. She looked ancient and scarred and powerful. Speak, human, she said in common tongue. Quickly, before I change my mind. Owen addressed the entire arena, his voice carrying in the sudden silence. You judged Raya as broken because she could not complete your trial the same way as before. But that is not weakness. That is adaptation. She learned new strategies. She found new strengths. She built a new life from nothing. Among humans, we have a saying. The most successful species is not the strongest or the fastest. It is the most adaptable. Humans are weak, someone shouted from the crowd. Yes, Owen agreed. Individually, we are weak. That is why we learn to work together, to adapt, to survive through creativity instead of strength. Raya learned these things. She did not become less Drakshi. She became more than Drakshi. She became someone who could bridge two worlds. The ancient Drakshi studied him with eyes that had seen centuries. And what are you to her, human? I am her husband, her partner, her friend. Owen looked at Raya, saw her eyes shining with tears, and she is the bravest person I have ever met. The Ancient One turned to Raya. You completed the trial, not alone but with a warrior of another species. That is adaptation. That is strength. She addressed the crowd. I was once like you, believing only traditional strength mattered. Then humans taught me that survival itself is a kind of strength. I declare this trial complete. Raya Brightwing, your honor is restored. The arena erupted in voices, some angry, some approving, all loud. But Owen only heard Raya's whispered words. You came for me. Of course I did. I love you, you ridiculous dragon woman. She kissed him in front of thousands of Drakshi warriors, and Owen had never felt braver. 1 year later, their workshop was the most successful in 3 sectors. They had hired 5 employees, all outcasts and refugees who needed a second chance. Owen's surgery had been successful, his headaches gone. Raya wore a modified wedding band that incorporated both human and Drakshi designs. A symbol of 2 worlds merged. A customer walked in, a nervous Quillen holding a broken navigation unit. I heard you fix anything, the customer said. Even impossible things. Owen and Raya looked at each other and smiled. That is what we do, Raya said. We fix impossible things. Starting with ourselves, Owen added. They got to work, 2 broken people who had repaired each other, ready to fix whatever the universe brought through their door.